All right, everybody, welcome back to the KSR YouTube channel, where we are over at Will's Home Shop again, working on SoccerMom. And we gotta get to work, because we got a lot of stuff to finish wiring on this thing, because we've got events to make coming up. We also got to get the motor put back together, which I do have an update on that finally, which is really good. So yeah, we've got wiring to do today. Show you some of the work that Will's gotten done since the last SoccerMom update video, but we do have a plan, so I'm going to show you a little bit of that plan, like I said, what he's gotten done so far. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, well, one of the things that Will did, which I think is awesome, and we kind of have done some stuff similar at the shop, but he went into even more detail with how he mapped out the wiring harness for the car. So took a piece of poster board and basically drew out different specifics of the car. Like this line here is where the main hoop is. This line is where the rear end is at. This is the back of the car where the taillights. Then you can see he labeled all these different things and also put dimensions on there so that we can kind of have an idea of how far the wire runs are going to be from the different sections. So what that helped do was over here on this bench, starting down here, which is where the tail lights and some other trailer wiring, and one of these is for the weather temp sensor, or actually it's a weather sensor just like I put on a couple other cars, but it's going to mount at the very back of the car. You can see it's got 4 little bitty wires inside of that one bundled up wire right there. So all of that harness, you can see, runs the whole way down. It's got a breakout for drive shaft sensor and shock sensor, comes all the way up. These breakouts here are some of the light wiring, or these are the lights, I don't remember. And then there is the ECU plug where it plugs into the ECU. So all of that poster over there with the map of the car helps make this stuff all a lot easier to do. And then these notes where everything is labeled, you know, different colors, the pins, all of that stuff just makes it a lot easier to go through your execution process. When you're planning it out a lot on paper, it saves you a lot of time in the actual building into the car. So since we were here last, we got the old ECU mount ground off of these bars down here, got everything all painted back up nice. All these are mounted, or injector driver module, EGT box from Holly, and then our new ECU mount's right up here. So there's just going to be drop down wires that come down and go to the injector driver module, and then there's some of the outputs come down and drive the relay board here from Leash. So lots and lots and lots of wires we've got to do. Will's actually out right now, going to be working on the firewall connectors for the injectors, which I'll show you guys what we're doing there, which I might have shown. Oh yeah, I left them over here. So just like we did on Mullet, we've got a firewall connector, and these we sourced from WireCare. So this will be sticking through the firewall, this center part here. It's got a nice seal, so if things get not so nice under the hood, we're not gonna say the possibilities, but you know, it's sealed off. I have 2 bolts that bolt it to the firewall, and then each injector harness will just plug right in, and we'll be able to switch between them if we have to. That seal won't come off once the actual wires are all plugged in and the lock piece is installed in the end of the Deutsch connector. But trying to make this thing where it is very well thought out, and like I had mentioned before in another video, I'm gonna try and keep basically this same wiring harness and pin count and connectors and all of the things the same for my car. And that way, if we ever need to swap motors between stuff, we can do that. I don't know why we would do that, but maybe there's a big block in the future for one of the cars. We'll see. But yeah, it's time for us to get to work, sling some wires, take you guys along in a time lapse. Here we go. All right, so the first order of business on today's wiring project is I need to connect a lot of the switches in our switch panel over to the leash board. And if you guys haven't heard me talk about it before, we typically use a relay board that has 8 relays on it. It also has all of the headlight and taillight functions in it, as well as trans brake control, including the ability to use the trans brake bump function that is on an output in the Holley system. So we typically use these in all of our builds. We like them so far over the PDMs because they have higher amperage carrying ability per circuit over what at least some of the PDMs that we've seen so far. Like a lot of the stuff that you guys see us use in our videos, we keep pretty much all of these products in stock. I've got leash boards in stock. We've got Holley ECUs in stock, injector driver modules, EGT things, which a lot of them you cannot get from Holley right now. So we try to stay stocked up ahead on this stuff. If you guys need any of this stuff, please feel free to give us a call. You can talk to either Eric or Tad. Sometimes you get me on the phone selling parts, but most of the time I am out in the shop building projects. But we do offer a lot of these products. Pretty much all of the products that you guys see us using, we sell them as well. So if you want to support us in that way, give us a call. We'd be happy to help you out with your project, whether it's with Holley EFI, turbo systems, all of the Holley brands that they sell, plumbing products from Earl's. If you guys need it for your project, we'll help you out. So anyways, let's move back into SoccerMom's wiring. So you can see I've been connecting wires over from the leash board to our switch panel. I do, especially for SoccerMom, I just have basic toggle switches in the car. Now they are a very high quality toggle switch. Knock on wood, we have not had any single switch fail in any of the time that we've been running the car. So it's kind of one of those things where I'm a big believer in the KISS method, which is keep it simple, stupid. And yep, that works really well for me. In the same way that if you noticed for some of this project, I've been looking at a notepad. Like I showed you before, that notepad has the documentation on it for the work that Will is doing. And having the notepad available to you or your friends helping you out with your car, it lets everybody go back to some kind of documented figure or documented reference so that anytime you have a question about something, you can just flip back to your notes. All right, on this connector in this pin, we have this color wire going to this function of the car, or this switch in the car, or this sensor in the car, and it makes it to where, it's not only you that can work on your car, which, maybe not everybody wants to be able to do that, but for a lot of people, like with us here, me, Will, and Kimber working on the car, we have a worksheet and a notebook where we can go back and thumb through notes and, see what we've done to the car. And we do the same thing with a lot of our tune-ups as they progress. We write down different shock settings that we've changed in the car, or how quickly we brought the boost in, what the weather conditions are. Now I'm trying to get to where I do a better job of keeping all of that data in the actual data logs themselves, but that's where we're at right now. Will was very successful with that method with his own personal car, and we've had some really good success with the SoccerMom, and we hope to be getting her back on the track probably early in, let's see, what's this, July? Should be early in August. We hope to have the motor back in it, and I'll be telling you more about that here in just a little bit. You can see I got my headphones on through different parts of the end of this clip, Will is grinding on the firewall where the injector connectors are going through, and it was really loud inside the car. So let's get back to some live action, tell you what's going on. All right, so we got a little bit of wiring done, but then realized there was a few things that were over at the shop that we kind of thought would have helped us out here. So we hopped in the Corvette. Will's got a Corvette too. And we ran over to the shop, grabbed some lunch. Will's working on some of the front routing here by taking the wheel off. And why are we working on the car here instead of the shop? Well, Will's got this awesome shop, and Will's got AC, because Will's smart.
I like AC.
We've got a plan for some AC at the shop, but for right now, Will's shop has AC and KSR does not. So we're here. So one of the things we went to the shop to grab was my Deutsch Connector Kit that I got from WireCare, just so that we would have an assortment of the connectors here, because, like, you know, we're using these for the firewall like I showed you earlier, but these are the same as, you know, some of these, like do I have a 6 in here? Yeah. So the same fitting fits into this, even though, you know, the female side of the connector is obviously different. But along with the DT series Deutsch connectors, we are using some DTM, and I'll show you the reason why. Basically, it's just because they're smaller. So this is a DT series 2-pin connector, which does carry higher amps. Like these will carry, I believe, 15 amps per pin, and this connector is a measurable amount smaller, a little bit shorter overall, and these are good for 7 amps a piece. So for things like our boost control solenoids and our shifter solenoid and our parachute air solenoid, all of those are going to use the same solenoid, so we're actually going to wire them all the same, and then we'll have one spare solenoid in the trailer so that everything has a spare kind of deal. We're trying to engineer the car to where, you know, we have to carry the least amount of spare parts. So for the air solenoids, like I said, for the parachute, it's mounted to the roll cage right here, and it goes up and will fire the handle that's up there hiding in the roof. And that's the same style solenoid that we use for the boost control. It's the same for the shifter. You can see there's one mounted on the back of the shifter right there. So that's a good thing to do, because you can simplify your spare parts package and even have them already prepared. Like, we'll probably carry an extra wheel speed sensor for the drive shaft. Probably going to use the same sensor on the drive shaft and on the front wheel speed. Again, only one sensor that we have to carry if we lose one of the wheel speeds. So we'll get back to work here. Will's mounting the firewall connectors for the injectors, so then we can go ahead and wire those up. See, we got us a hole there he's working on, and then there'll be a second one right above it. That's where our main connector for the twist connector will be for the main engine harness. And then we've got to wire up this relay board, coils, transmission cooler, water pump fan. There's our boost control solenoids right there, so we're going to wire them on a Deutsch connector. Gonna have this thing cleaned up, simplified, and hopefully ready to go back to the track as soon as we get the motor back for this thing. So the block is over there. I'll tell you what we're going to do on the block here in just a few minutes. Stay tuned. So another area of the car that we are going to be modifying this go around is we are removing the intercooler. So you can see some of our 6 week modifications where we ducted the radiator, and we still had some problems with the engine running hot once we got over like 65 miles an hour. Didn't get super hot, like 205 was what we were seeing on coolant temps, but we kind of feel like, and with the openings in the front of the car, like the air-to-air intercooler is stealing most of the air. not making it where the radiator itself is getting efficient airflow through it. And since we are on alcohol at the racetrack, alcohol can deal with the higher temperatures because of some kind of science that happens when alcohol fuel goes from liquid to gas. It cools the air a lot. If you have ever put like rubbing alcohol or anything like that on your hands, how it feels cold. Well, methanol fuel does the exact same thing, only in the intake tract of the engine. So we're going to get rid of the air-to-air intercooler, which saves us like 45 pounds off the nose of the car, which unfortunately we added 40 pounds to the rear of the car with the street fuel cell. So things are going to be a little interesting to get used to the car again and get it tuned to hopefully keep the front end down on the ground. But that'll make for some exciting videos for you guys. Hopefully not too exciting from the driver's seat because we don't want to wheelie the car. But we do realize that it sometimes happens. This car's been stood up a few times. Not super, super high, but so far we've been able to bring it down without hurting her too bad so far. But just another round of modifications we're doing to the car this time. And we do plan on eventually changing the radiator and fan setup. But for the time being, like that's probably going to be okay for what we've got going on right now with the car. Like we don't have any big drag and drive events that we're going to be able to do. It doesn't look like I'm going to be able to make Rocky Mountain Race Week 2 because of some other schedule conflicts. So we've got some local events we're going to do where we will do some, some drives and then race, but it won't be like a full-on drag and drive event. So our current radiator should work out pretty well. So like I mentioned earlier in the video, we're wiring all of our air solenoids on the same style connector, and we're using the same method with the pins. So that way we'll actually be able to have our air solenoid, our spare air solenoid already wired up with the Deutsch Connector pins on it, and then we will be able to very quickly pop one solenoid out and plug it right into the Deutsch Connector. Every single Deutsch Connector that is associated with an air solenoid is the same DTM style connector. So like I said, just trying to keep that consistency in the car and make it easy for side of the road or easy repairs at the racetrack if we need them. Now, hopefully we don't need them, but we're trying to prepare for things. Because one of the theories that I have in my racing career is if you prepare for something, you're not going to need it. Same thing, or along the same lines of if you bring that spare part, you're not going to need it. Which, maybe we just need to bring a whole spare engine for next year. But no, we're not going to talk about that right now. That whole engine failure or engine problem was my own doing. I fully admit to it. I sent it knowing that the engine was compromised, and you guys have seen the results. But back to wiring on the switch panel, actually terminating the switch side of it right now and doing it with the switches in place so that I know that I have the wires all of really nice routing length to where I can kind of keep them all bundled together. And we're using Tefzel wire that we got from WireCare. And if you guys don't know Tefzel wire, it is really good, high-quality wire. And it is very thinly jacketed. Like the insulating jacket on it is very high quality, but it's also very thin. So it leads you to have very small harness bundles in your car. Like our bundle that runs to the back of the car, and it's got something like 20 wires in it through the middle section of the car because it has the parachute solenoid in it, the drive shaft sensor, it's got the taillights in it. It's got all of the control wiring for the rear fuel pump, rear fuel pressure, rear fuel level, all these different things, the rear shock sensors, and the bundle of wires is less than a 1/2 inch in diameter. And the wiring harnesses just disappear in the car. It's really nice. I'm really excited to show you guys the finished engine compartment. I do wish that we had taken some better pictures of that, but we'll have to deal with that another day and show you guys the before and after of how much cleaner the engine wiring harness is going to be in the car. So what I'm actually doing right now is robbing some of the Holley wire because there's a couple of wires in the Holley bundle that I didn't have in Tefzel colored wire. So for the injector connectors, or the wires that are going to run from the injector driver to the firewall connector, which is what we're populating right now, I wanted to use all of the matching Holley wiring that match the engine harness colors. So that's what we're doing right now. I got to lay up on my back to plug them into the firewall connector. And once we wrap up that populating of the firewall connector, now I've moved on to tidying up some of the EGT wiring. Now the Holley connectors that come for the, let's call it the ECU side of the harness, you can disassemble these connectors and shorten the length of the wires so that it suits your routing in the car better. Some people have argued that you change the temperature readings because the thermocouples are very sensitive, but I have not seen that to be the case. Whenever we're first cranking the car up, all of the EGTs have always matched each other within a degree or two, and there's been no correlation between, okay, the ones you modified shorter are now a lower temperature, nothing like that. So I really feel like we are accomplishing a much cleaner looking harness by shortening the EGT connectors. I also shortened the EGT connectors on the engine side of the firewall, and that actually requires some different thermocouple connectors because the Holley ones are molded on. So we get some different thermocouples that allow us to shorten the engine side of the thermocouples, and then you'll see once we get that part done, it's going to be very nicely routed to the engine, and it won't have loops in it and coils and just be messed up to where it's just not pretty looking. Whenever you kind of just keep stacking stuff on, you end up with kind of what we had with SoccerMom, and that our wiring just got more and more cluttered and, just unprofessional looking because we kept stacking stuff on really quickly. And we finally decided that since the engine parts were taking a while to get, we kind of talked as a team and decided we would go ahead and completely rewire this thing. And in doing so, I think we've probably actually eliminated 5 pounds or so of wiring by simplifying the harness, shortening certain wires that needed to be shortened. Like for one example, we're shortening the O2 sensor wiring over 3 feet from what we used to have before, and that wire was kind of heavy. The old wiring that we had running from the front to the back of the car for all of our lights and everything was like 16 gauge, kind of heavy duty trailer wiring that I keep in stock for some other stuff. But for our lights and our stuff like that, the car has all LED bulbs, so it doesn't need the heavy jacketed 16 gauge wiring to control all the lights in the car. So we've cut all that down, and I really feel like we've removed easily 5 pounds of weight out of the car, and that was already a car that we had wired, with minimal wiring already in the car. So now I'm working on the driver's side EGT connections and getting them back installed into the firewall plates. So wrapping that part up, and I also completed, which it's not completely done, but there's 2 wires that come out of the EGT control box that go up to the second channel for the CAN communications that's in the Holley, and those are in the J3 connector, and that's going to simplify our wiring even more at the ECU. All right, well, quite a bit of progress. Even though it may not look like it, we got a lot done. But I did promise you I was going to tell you what we're doing with the engine. And I know I've showed you guys what's up with it before, but after our weld repair, see where we welded her up? Right there, we still have to drill another hole for where the water port is on the gasket. But actually, I didn't quite weld it up enough right here at the very edge. But the good thing is, the combustion seal is going to be right there around the sleeve. So we're actually having the block cut for top fuel hoops that you hear everybody talking about. Cletus had it done with the LS motor in its last version, as well as his new Steve Morris big block is also top fuel hooped. So we're going to be doing that. So that's pretty exciting. And to really keep the heads on, we're gonna do what we did on the lawn dart engine, and that is convert all of the head stud holes to 1/2 inch. So the lawn dart, so I hope I don't jinx Dick with talking about this, but the lawn dart has never hurt itself ever. Now, typically when I'm running somebody else's car and, you know, teaching the guys to run that car along the way, always tried to keep them on the conservative side. SoccerMom, sometimes we just send it and we see what happens. So the car's made pretty similar power, even when we were kind of leaning on SoccerMom, but SoccerMom was a little heavier, so a little more likely to hurt stuff. But he's never heard a head gasket in that thing. That thing has just been a trooper. So we're gonna try this 1/2 inch head stud upgrade, same block that's in the lawn dart. So try to do that with ours and see if we can keep it alive there. But what we got done on SoccerMom is we've gotten the switch panel completely wired up, with the exception of that one eyelet hanging down is the master cutoff. Need to shorten it a little bit, and that goes to the upper left switch. The headlight switch is completely wired. We're going to be grinding this out and putting a USB charger. So we've got 2 wires to run over for that. But all the switch panel is wired over into the leash box. The EGT all got shortened at the, what you saw that in the time lapse. Shortened the passenger side, and then I ended up reheat shrinking the driver's side so that it all had the nice Ray Kim heat shrink on it. But the EGT we decided to run from the CAN wires that are out of the J3 connector in the Dominator. So that's what those are right there. CAN high, CAN low. And that's supposed to stay right there while I'm talking about it. But Will's got the J4 harness, which runs a lot of the rear section of the car. All the sensors that are back there. Waiting for a little bit more heat shrink to come in from our buddies at WireCare. So we're going to be getting that in tomorrow, and then Will can put that rear harness in. We've gotten the injector plugs in the firewall, which maybe saw a little bit of that. So that's these dudes right here. EGTs are in for the final time. Will got all the front stuff taken apart because we are going to be upgrading the radiator and the cooling fan. And then I've got to get the motor down to the machine shop guy that we've talked to about doing the top fuel hoops. We did find somebody. Thanks to Dr. Tunamall Nate. He hooked me up with one of his buddies. And hopefully we can get that done fairly quick and then be assembling the motor. It's not a motor, it's an engine. Some of you guys have called me on that. All you electric car guys, you know, those have motors, but real cars have engines. Haha. Yep, said it. Anyways, that's gonna wrap it up for today for me. You good?
I'm good.
You gonna keep working?
I'll probably working on some cold beer. I might tinker a little longer.
Cold snacks, as our buddy Derek from Vice Grip Garage likes to say. So I'm actually hopping on the road to go to Mike Finnegan's house because I'm gonna go play with some boats tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. See you then.